How to calculate the equation of a circle. Okay, say we have a circle, and we want to find its line equation. Okay? Now, one thing that we know about circles is that the distance from the center, and in this case the origin is 0, 0, the distance from the center to the circumference is always going to be r, which represents the radius, no matter where you draw the radius to. Okay? That is one thing that we know about circles. Now, how can we take this piece of information and create it into an equation? So let's find r in terms of like the x and y. Okay, so this corner right here, for example, this would be the x, that would be the y. This corner right here, this would be the x, that would be the y. You do another r, this one right here, this part would be the x, this part would be the y. Okay, now what's interesting is that x and y are going to change, okay, obviously, as you can see. However, the radius is always constant, that the hypotenuse length in this case, because look, it's a right angle triangle. This means that we could just apply Pythagoras' theorem, x squared plus y squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared, which is r squared. And since r squared is just constant, this is our line equation. Well, not really a line, this is our circle equation. And this is the general form of a circle where the center is 0, 0. Now let's look at if the center isn't at 0, 0. Okay, so let me draw a circle. So that is 1, 1. Okay, obviously in this case you can tell that the radius is 1 because it touches the y-axis and the x-axis. We know that the radius is 1. However, let's pretend we don't know this information, okay? So from here, let me draw like, that is the radius, that is a radius, okay? And that is a radius. Now let me zoom in. Okay, so again, this is the x, this is the y. Okay, however, the entire coordinate of this point, so this entire distance is in fact x, and this entire height is y. So how do we find, let's call this y2 and x2. So how do we find y2 and x2? Well, we know that because the center is at 1, 1, we know that this is 1, we know that this is 1. So we could just, in order to find x2, we just do x2 is equal to x minus 1. And then y2 is equal to y minus 1. Now we can apply the same equation, however instead of however we substitute y2 x, not squared, y2 and x2 into this. So we would get x minus 1 squared plus y minus 1 squared is equal to r squared. Let me go over that again real quick. Say we have a point on the circle, which is here. Okay, this is the y value, this is the x value. Okay, let's just play with point P. Okay, now as shown before, we want to find the movement in x from the center and the movement in y from the center, and you can just use Pythagoras and just equate that to r squared. Okay, however, from the center, what is the movement of x2? Well, if this entire distance is x, and we know that the distance from the center from the origin to the center of the circle is 1. So we know that this extra distance right here is just x minus 1. as you can see over here. And this applies to, and we apply the same logic to finding y2, which is just y minus 1 over here. Now you substitute this in and do the Pythagoras, so you get this. Okay? Now, let's do another example. This time we're looking at negative 2. Let me write it over here. Center equals to negative 2, comma, negative 1. Okay? And again, we're looking at a random value and radius, r like this. Okay? So, let's find, so we're looking at this corner, there's a point P. This is the y value, right here, this is y. Okay? And this is x. Okay, in this case, x is going to be negative and y is also going to be negative. Now, we want to just find, though, x2 and y2. So we can apply Pythagoras, because we know that x2 squared plus y2 squared equals r squared. Okay, so what is the value of x2 and y2 in terms of x and y? Well, we know that this distance right here is negative 2, and this distance right here is negative 1. So, the distance over here is just going to be x minus 2, which is x plus 2. And this is going to be x subscript 2. Okay, now what about y2? Apply the same logic. If this value is negative 1, we do y2 is equal to y minus 1. And we know that just minus just means plus. It's just x plus 2, and it's just y plus 1. Now we can substitute this into here, and this into here. So we get x plus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals to r squared. Okay? Now, say we already have a equation, okay? How do you work out where to draw the circle? Say we have x plus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared is equal to 25. First of all, r squared. This is r squared. What is the square root of 25? 5. So we know the radius is 5. Okay. Now, based on what we did earlier, which is the same as this, we just know that the center is negative 2, comma negative 1. Okay? But why? And this comes from the general form. And the general form is x minus a squared plus y minus b squared is equal to r squared. And the center is a comma b. Okay? Now this is the general form. So in this case, and I just showed why this is true. So in this case, the center is negative 2, negative 1. So we substitute negative 2 into a and negative 1 into b. Okay? We will get the same as this. And this works here as well. We will substitute, because what the center was 1, comma 1. If I substitute 1 into this and 1 into this, you get x minus 1 squared plus y minus 1 squared is equal to r squared, which is right here. Okay? So this is the general form. However, it's not always going to be written like this. Sometimes it's going to be written like x squared minus 6x plus 9, minus 9 plus y squared minus 8x minus 30 is equal to 0. Okay. Now clearly, this does not look anything like that. Okay. However, we can apply something that we've known before. We can complete the square for x and y in order to get this square component right here. So let's complete the square for this x part right here. Okay. So if I complete the square, I get negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. So the x minus 3 squared. X squared, now I've got the minus 6 squared, I've got the plus 9, I want to subtract the 9 in order to get this part. Let me just do that in blue. So this part equals this part. Okay, and it's the minus 9 plus, I'm going to do the same thing here, and we just get y minus 4 squared, this is plus 16, so I want to minus the 16. Now, this part is equal to this part, minus 30 is equal to 0. Okay, now, I've got something that looks a little bit similar to this, however, we want a value of r squared on the other side. So you can just add up all the minuses and send it over. X minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to 9 plus 9 plus 16 plus 30, which is equal to 18 plus 16 plus 30, which is 34, which is 64. Okay. Now, we have got this in the form that we like. And we just have to take out the data. So we know that the center is a comma b. And in this case, that's going to be 3 comma 4. Because it's the minus 3 here and the minus 4 there. Make sure you remember that this has to be a minus. Okay? Now, r squared is 64. Means r is 8. So the radius is 8. The center is 3 comma 4. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.